And we are live. Welcome to the Live with Sondra show. I'm your host, Sondra Shannon, CEO of Gatemaster Technology. And I've got an amazing guest that I've been waiting for quite a while to get on this show because we're going to talk about some super fun topics, really helpful things for anybody in the attraction space. We're going to be focusing a little bit on the attraction business and how they can better use technology and data to transform guest satisfaction. So, my guest today is Jamie Flaherty. He is the VP of Business Development and Marketing at NetServ Applications. And we're going to explore how guest feedback, tech innovations, and data are transforming the attraction industry. So you're not going to want to miss this. I think today we're going to explore ideas of feedback that shape the attraction's future. We're going to be turning negative reviews into growth opportunities. We're going to be talking about centralized data and for operational efficiency. That's one I like to talk about for sure, because this is that's a huge part of the tech stack and understanding how that works. And then last but not least, something that I'm really excited about, because this is somebody who is an early adopter of the IAAPA mentorship program. We're going to be talking about networking, mentorship, and building a successful career in attractions. So without further ado, if you can help me give Jamie a warm welcome to the show. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sondra. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. And hey, I gave a little background. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that. I know that you and I have a very similar background in this industry with regards to ticketing, but I'm sure that there is so much more to you beyond what I mentioned here. Is there anything that you want to add to who you are, and maybe just tell the audience who you are and how long you've been in the space? And there's one more question I have for you. What makes you most passionate about the attractions industry?
Oh, that's a good one. So let me start with just a little bit about me. Uh, I am born and raised in Pennsylvania. I live outside of Philly now, but as you can see behind me, I'm a very proud Pittsburgher. Big time into sports. Both my kids are into sports, love coaching, and doing everything I can with them. And as far as what am I most passionate about? Was that the question? What am I most passionate about?
What brings you to the attraction industry? What keeps you here? Because I always say, like, once you're here, you're a lifer, and I know you are.
Absolutely. So the thing that keeps me here is just the variety and passion everybody else has in the industry. I think I came into the industry 13, 14 years ago now. And I was shocked the first time, as most people are, right? You walk on the show floor at IAAPA and you're wide-eyed and you're like, what did I get myself into? And then over time, you meet people, and the amount of information that is shared, even between competitors sometimes, on just the industry is like nothing I've ever been a part of. And building relationships through the different trade shows, through the different events that the whole industry has together, is really what keeps me around and keeps me going. I look forward to this time of year. It's really trade show season. Started a couple of weeks ago, and we go till the end of November as the big trade show season. And it's like family reunions every show you go to anymore. But it's the passion that everybody else has that gets me so excited to stick around and see everybody face to face.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And I noticed on your LinkedIn, I think in your bio, it had that you were attraction ninja.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to
Yeah,
you?
so
Like, I'm just curious what that means.
I came up with that many years ago. Honestly, it started as a joke, and I think it just caught on everywhere, and it's stuck with me ever since. But I think I was even just taking a class on how to make your LinkedIn profile better, and it was don't put your job title, get creative. That's what makes you stand out sometimes in the industry. And the attraction ninja really started because of how many different roles that I can play, how many different relationships I've built over the years. Um, as many people are, you're in the same boat. We build so many relationships with different companies that we understand their business, so that when our customers or our prospects are talking about something, we can share our insight into to more than just what our core business is. Coming into the industry, I would have no idea that I would know so much about ticket insurance. That wasn't even a big thing back then, but now you see it popping up everywhere. And mobile applications, and all these great pieces of software that aren't really my core business, but that are out there that I can speak on. And I think that's where the whole ninja thing came up.
That's pretty awesome. I love that. I love that that's like a creative nickname that you gave yourself, which is which is pretty cool because I've seen some of that. I mean, it definitely caught my eye, and I'm sure people noticed that. And I think it is interesting what you said about having to know so much in order to really be available to the attractions that you serve, right? Like I feel very similar. I've had to learn so much about so many things. Like, I know more about rides than I ever need to know about, probably because it's not my scope of expertise. I'm glad that I know that, and I'm glad that I know it because if ever there is a question, I can at least refer them to the people that they know. And that's why I think I love the idea of we're going to wrap with talking about mentorship and networking. That's actually how you and I met.
Absolutely.
Community, right? So but first, I want to jump into this guest feedback conversation and sentiment analysis. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you don't mind. I'm just gonna give our audience the uh, what's the word I'm at a loss for words. I want to give
Scoop.
them the definition of what sentiment analysis is,
Sure.
just in case there are those that don't understand what that word means, so that we're all on the same page. Sentiment analysis is the process of analyzing digital text to determine if the emotional tone of the message is positive, negative, or neutral. And today, companies have large volumes of text data like emails, customer support chat transcripts, social media comments, and even reviews. Is there anything you want to add to that? I just want to make sure when we jump into this conversation that we're all on the same page.
You nailed it. So in layman's terms, it's really reading the words that are part of a review, determining whether or not it's being spoken about in positive or negative light, and then scoring that based on that feedback.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this is where I'm really excited about this conversation because I think there is a huge opportunity for attractions to really focus on the importance of guest feedback. And so, Jamie, how do you see guest feedback impacting the future of attractions?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I always say that the things that aren't tracked, they stay hidden until they explode, right? Which means there's all this feedback out there and all these different channels. Think Google reviews, Yelp, TripAdvisor, on and on, Facebook, Twitter. It just goes on. There's way too many sources out there and avenues for the general public to leave feedback on your business. Now, it's not just the attractions industry, right? This isn't anything new. It's been out there for decades at this point. Think, when was the last time you bought something over a couple $100 on Amazon and didn't click on the reviews? You always go to the reviews, and if you're like me, you go to the one star reviews first and see if you can deal with them before you make the purchase. But reviews can really make or break any type of business. So specifically in the attraction space, one bad review isn't going to kill, obviously, the Disneys, Universals, Merlins, things like that. But attractions are a lot more than that anymore. Think of the Halloween haunts. These Halloween haunts, there's a whole conference for that now, which is fantastic if you've never been. But these Halloween haunts, they kind of live and breathe by these reviews and the shares and likes, and even the pop-up resorts, the pop-up exhibits that we're seeing in Orlando and Vegas, New York. These are experiences that the younger youth of today, want to go and take selfies and just post online that they've been there. And a lot of times it'll come down to the reviews on whether or not they're successful or not. So it's extremely important for the future of the industry to be paying attention to what people are saying online.
Yeah, I think it's important too. There's so many times where we're looking for a restaurant, and my 18, almost 18-year-old will say to me, "Well, what do the reviews say?" Before we choose that restaurant. And I don't, I'm old school. I don't think like that. I'm just like, what's close? Good, right? But, I think you really are hitting on something that's important, and that is that, you know, that is how most people decide whether or not they're going to become a customer or a guest of an establishment. I know that you mentioned that there are so many platforms out there. I mean, it's Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor. There are so many platforms out there. But what I'm curious about with this wealth of information online with regards to reviews, what is the best and most effective way for attractions to make use of that data? Because I imagine it can be overwhelming, especially for these bigger parks.
It can be, and I have to answer that question all the time, and I say just make sure there's a plan. Obviously, I have a product, have some insights, shameless plug there a little bit, that helps with that. But there's other sources out there, and even if you can't afford, not that they're expensive, but even if you can't afford um, a product to do it for you, at least have somebody on staff that is going in and checking the reviews and reporting back on what people are saying. It can be a very time consuming process to do, but the worst thing I always feel that you can do is just leave those comments out there, especially the ones that go unanswered for weeks or months or ever. I'm a big fan of making sure you respond to both the positive and negative reviews. I always encourage people that I'm working with to pick a number, whether that number is 80%. It's probably not 100%, but maybe somewhere in the 70 to 80% range, maybe a little higher. Make sure you're replying to that number on a weekly, monthly, annual basis, because what that does is it shows that person that's out there shopping that you're at least paying attention to what the guests are saying. There's the worst thing I feel you can do is to have a bunch of 1-star reviews that just go completely ignored, and then have 4 and 5-star reviews that get thank you so much, we look forward to your next visit. You have to address both the positive and negative reviews, even if it's, hey, we're sorry we fall short of expectations, here's an email address or a phone number if you'd like to talk more, we would love to speak with you. That goes a long way in my book. Just like if I'm buying a product on Amazon or any of the online sources, it's okay to have a 1-star review, and if it's responded to, I'm more likely just to bypass it and go on to the next one. But if there's a bunch of reviews that go unresponded to, I'm like, well, is this company even paying attention? Is this an honest review? Do they even care? Those sort of things. So I always encourage especially attractions to just go in and make sure they have a plan and they are responding to the reviews.
Well, what I think is interesting about what you're saying about the responding to the reviews is when I book, so I'm a Marriott girl.
Same.
I'm always looking for a Marriott, but if I look and see that one is below, under 4.2, then I sometimes wonder what that's about, right? But I actually look more at the responses to those reviews than I do the actual review themselves. Because what's interesting for me is oftentimes people will give them a 1-star review, maybe because they didn't know the construction was happening on the pool that day. And if the establishment or the Marriott that I'm looking at responds with, I'm so sorry that construction inconvenienced you, but we're trying to improve what we're doing here, then I don't even care about that 1-star review.
That's exactly it, and that's where it comes back to the sentiment analysis piece, which you started and defined at the beginning of this. Not all 1-star ratings are 1-star ratings, just like not all 5-star ratings are 5-star ratings. We've all seen those in the amusement park review that says, "Hey, we had a great visit. Parking was easy, buying your ticket was simple, the access point was smooth, food was great and reasonably priced. Well, you might not get the reasonably priced. That doesn't show up too often, but all those things are great. And then you look at it and you're saying, how can this possibly get 1 star? And they finish by saying, but it rained, all the rides got shut down, and they closed early. And they give a 1 star rating. So that's where the sentiment analysis piece comes in, where it's not really a 1 star rating. It's 1 star rating because they left unhappy, but it was out of the attraction's control. It's for safety. Obviously, you have to shut down rides. And on the flip, you have 5 stars that probably say some negative things too. So it's important to do this, perform the sentiment analysis, and really understand what people are saying and how they get to the rating that they give.
Yeah. No, I like that. And actually, you totally, my next question was going to be on how they can, stay ahead of that curve and by improving the guest experience using that data. And I think some of that is, like you're saying, understanding what the data actually says, what the conversation actually is. Because if a customer's upset that it rained and the rides got shut down for safety reasons, that's a way different conversation. Maybe even an upsell conversation or an opportunity to reach out to that customer and get them to come back, right? But I think one thing that we don't have on here is, what do you think about real positive reviews? Is there anything you can say about that? Because I know like so many of the attractions that I work with are really focused on just the positive, which I think is great. But one of my mentors always taught me that, like, hey, there's going to be negative even when you're doing really good, because that's what getting out there and doing things looks like.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's again, you go back to Amazon. If I pull up a product and I see that there's 2,000 positive reviews and 0 negative reviews, I'm probably questioning the validity of those reviews to begin with.
Yeah.
Before I'm saying, oh, this must be a great product. I'm going to question it more than I'm going to believe it, I think. And I think that's just the marketplace that's out there. But yeah, I think, the goal isn't really to eliminate the 1 star ratings, because there's still value in having that information. We're all trying to get better. We're all pushing the industry. You and I, we go about it by using technology to better the industry and arm them with data. And I think from an attraction standpoint, yeah, you want as many 5 stars as possible, and that'll do a lot. It'll help your Google rating, it'll help all these things online, and it'll help when somebody does shop your attraction to see if they want to come. That's going to help. But it's okay to have the 1 star, especially the 1 star that I mentioned before about the rain, because all you have to do is go in and just give a quick response. Because at that point, if somebody is only shopping for the 1 star and they see that, it's a 1 star rating, but they said all these really great things, and just because it rained, okay, so I'm going to bypass that one. And now the 1 star reviews are starting to lose their validity, and now it's going to encourage somebody to come back to your park.
Well, and what I think is so interesting too, and I just think, just as a reminder to so many people, like a lot of times our guests are not in the business, or any business for that matter. Sometimes they're just a mom who's the CEO of her home, right? Like I always say, mom is the CEO of her home. What we see in the data oftentimes is that it is the female in the home who's purchasing the tickets, right? Or at least planning the experience. Whether or not it's her money or not, you know what I mean? Like it's family stuff, right?
Sure.
So what I think is interesting is, you do have to welcome those lower star reviews, because that person is operating off of their own feelings about the day, not necessarily was this something that was in control of the business. Clearly acts of nature, whether or not, or acts of God in nature, are not the responsibility or within the scope of what can be controlled by the attractions, but that still affected that person. And I think this is one of the reasons that I love conversations like this, because we have to put in perspective what's happening with the data. right? Like you're saying. And what, could you share some examples of how innovation in tech surprises and delights guests? Like, what does that look like? What is the information that's there?
Yeah,
And
I
the
mean,
technology.
but when it comes to technology, and this really goes back to attending the trade shows, especially IAAPA. I mean, there's so much technology out there that you can learn about on the show floor at IAAPA. And I'm a big IAAPA fan. Yes, it's not a full pitch for them, but any trade show has this. When anybody goes to a trade show, make sure you're going to as many booths as you can. Learn about those the other bits of technology, because, I mean, mobile apps have been around for a while, but they're learning to adjust. They're adjusting course. They start out with just maps, and you find out quick that, okay, maps are good. Going from a paper map to a digital map is just the right thing in a lot of instances. Cut down on paper and waste and all those things. But now they've moved into things like wait times and food ordering and AR. So they're just taking not only the ability to have that in your pocket, but they're also helping the experience, right? You spoke about the mom who's buying the tickets and coming to the park with the two kids, or maybe over summer. That's what my wife does, so I'll use her as the example. She's a teacher. She keeps the kids busy over summer so I can work. And a lot of times she'll go down to the zoo here in Philly, or Elmwood Park, or Philly, and it's up to her to use that technology. But if that technology enhances the experience by providing her some AR for my son, and allows her to order while there's a long line, or order ahead of time, and adjust on wait times, all those things enhance the guest experience. And then you talk about just technology in general, and things like kiosks. I'm not sure what you thought about kiosks in 2019, but I specifically remember having conversations where, we were talking about kiosks being dead. It was a dead technology because everybody had one in their pocket, right? I can't remember how many times I said that in 2019. And then 2020 comes and the world changes. And now you walk into every fast food restaurant and every grocery store. I mean, kiosks are everywhere now. And it's a great thing, because they adapted to what was happening in the world, and they're providing a lot of efficiencies across the attraction, across a lot of businesses for us.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up kiosks, because I was in the same. I said the same thing at trade shows. Why would you want a kiosk when everybody's got a kiosk on their phone?
Yeah.
And I do think there is truth to that, in terms of, like, if I can't do it on my phone, I'm probably not going to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Birthday party for my kid, whatever that looks like. However, what I think is interesting about kind of what we found after the pandemic, which is what I love about talking about information technology like this, because I was just at the IAAPA Public Affairs Conference in DC, and we were presented with some of the employment data, which is really shocking to me, how much lack, we don't have enough people to do these jobs. And so I think post the pandemic, kiosks became a way for so many businesses to bridge that gap. And so my idea on that has definitely changed. Not that we can't do everything on a cell phone, but some people's cell phones are not as advanced as others, right? And so you got to hit people where they're at. Have something for everybody. Which kind of brings me to my next question, because from your experience, what is the biggest technological advancement that attraction should adopt to stay ahead of the curve when improving the guest experience? I know you mentioned kiosks, and I think I'm totally on board with you there, but I know there's got to be so much more, especially from the data side.
Yeah, I mean, that's the $100,000 question, right? And that's the one that every development team and every CEO like yourself, across the industry, should be asking. What's next? What's the next big thing? And some of those things might already be here, that we're just a little behind, or, on the adaptation into the attraction world. I mean, facial recognition has been around for a while now. Um, it's popping up. It's growing in the industry a little bit, but I think that's going to be, personally, I think that's going to be pretty big. I mean, again, we go back to the cell phone. We're all kind of logging into all of our apps and things like that using facial recognition on the phones. You see it at airports. I just came through customs last week, and that they're using facial recognition there. I mean, that one's going to be big, I believe. Contactless payments. I mean, that's been around a while, but you see more and more of that. Virtual queuing, same thing. Some of the VR things, but personally, I think that probably the one I'm most passionate about, and the one I like talking about the most is just personalization of an experience. I want to be able to, and I see this a lot in the 20 somethings, 30 somethings anymore, is that if I go to an attraction once, great, I had a blast. Would I do it again? And that's the big question. Would I pay X amount of money to come here again? And obviously, we as attraction people, we want the answer to be yes, and have to answer that question of how we get them back. Is my attraction set up for the recurring business and get wanting to get people back in the door? And I think the personalization piece is doing that. My family and I went to Great Wolf a couple of weeks ago, and we went for the pools and the slides and things like that, but I didn't know anything about this Magic Quest game that they have, where you buy the wand, and it's a whole different experience that we weren't anticipating when we got there. So that went above and beyond what we were expecting, which was a great thing. We were able to bring things home, and of course, there's some upsells and add-ons that they could buy, which generates more revenue. But every time my son or daughter took their wand up to a little kiosk, it brought their character up that they named and gave a different color to, and all these things. That's personalization. Some of the things that a company like Vantage is doing with the LED lights and the music being played and the water slides. To me,
Yeah.
that's what I want. I want more personalization everywhere I go.
100%. I mean, I love what they're doing with that. I love the idea that I could choose the song, right? Like, what a cool experience. And I think that what you're saying is so true because even with, because I know you have a background in ticketing as well, so that purchasing decision making and even personalizing that experience for them. When I just I went for my birthday last week and I went to Los Angeles overnight to see a friend,
Happy
and
birthday.
I got to my Marriott and it said, "Hello, Sondra" on the TV.
Exactly.
And it was so funny because my friend had never seen that. And she was like, "That's really nice. Do they do that for everybody?" She thought I was like special. And I'm like, because I was there on point.
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, no, they do that for everybody. It is a nice touch. And I mean, it's so nice that she called that out while we're sitting there. Right. And that kind of actually brings me to, are you doing okay on time? There's just a few more things I want to hit because I definitely do not want to,
Yeah, I'm good.
I just want to touch real quick on the centralized data, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I want to touch on that is because that is a common question that we at Gatemaster get. It's a common question and problem that we're trying to always solve. And, obviously talking to you today, I can see so many points of collaboration for even you and I, if you'll allow me to have that conversation with you after the show. But I know that so many attractions are their systems are very um, broken, right? They have different retail systems, different ticketing systems, different weather monitoring systems, maybe different, HR systems. I mean, look, I talk about on the show a lot. Like the tool fatigue is real in every segment of business right now. And I think that, and I'm hoping what you're going to say is that with centralizing the data, we can alleviate some of that because I believe that is possible. And so I'm curious, I know Power BI improves operational efficiency. Is there any other insights that you can give along those lines? Because I know that's really what you're looking to do, is bring all that data into manageable, measurable information.
You mean to tell me there's no perfect software, Sondra? I thought there was. I thought that's why everyone buys their software, right?
I mean, I feel like there's some pretty good ones out there, but I do think, that there is an expectation that, one system's going to be everything for everyone. Like for us, like we're not monitoring weather.
Exactly. And
We can with what we're talking about though.
yeah, there is no perfect software, and that's why we're continuing to develop new, and why you see so many, SaaS ticketing companies in our example, just popping up all over the place. Um, you mentioned some food and beverage ticketing, things like that, but especially in attractions, there's so many more. There's the photo, the food trucks that are coming in now, the 4D theaters that are rolling in and out, the add-ons like dinosaurs and things like that for zoos. I mean, there's just so many different systems.
Savannah rentals, like
Yeah.
the list goes on.
So yeah, I mean, we're a Power BI shop, so we do a lot of this for attractions. We just help centralize their data into one location. And again, deep down, I'm a data nerd. So show me the numbers and let's figure out what's going on. And I'm a big fan of the belief that you can't fix something if you don't know it's broken, and you don't know if it's broken if you're not tracking the data. So a lot of times, if you get the data together, then you can start to pick and choose what areas of the business you want to focus on, and that might be falling short of budget or short of where you believe that it should have been. So yeah, pulling all that data into central dashboards is something that we work with a lot of attractions on. And I think that the biggest thing in doing that is you can have as many sources as you want, right? And that's the beauty of something like Power BI. You can pull in the weather. It doesn't have to be in the same exact report, because if you're going for the perfect report, there's no such thing as that either. But being able to jump
To
what's that?
that. Amen to that. Like I've been dealing with reports most of my career. It's a very difficult thing because what other people everybody's trying to measure is very different too. So
Right.
it's very hard to have a one size fits all for every attraction.
And the CFO wants to look at it one way, and the controller wants to look at it a different way. None of those things ever match up. But the key to making all of that work is, one, first centralizing the data somewhere, whether it's Power BI, another tool. Just have the access to the data, and then be either, whether you have somebody on staff or somebody that you outsource to, have a resource that can truly look at the data and pull the data quickly. So if you are sitting in a room with your executive team, having somebody that can pull data quickly to answer those questions. So, okay, if give us the attendance when it's in the 70 degrees on Tuesdays. What's the general attendance? And then you can look at the food and beverage numbers and things like that go along with it as well. Being able to get that granular on things is real important, and sometimes it does take multiple reports to get you there. But there's too many attractions and really just businesses in general that just continue to spin their wheels by asking the same questions over and over and over, that aren't doing anything about it. They're just continuing to ask the same questions when the data is there somewhere. It's just they don't know how to get to it. And the important thing is centralizing it and being able to access it.
I mean, we could do a whole show on that. I think
Absolutely.
because at the end of the day, that is a real challenge for a lot of the parks that even we serve, and even as in our own business, right? Like you're saying, so many businesses do not have quick access to their data because their data can be coming from all of these various sources, and when that's happening, it becomes a little cumbersome, right? Like it's hard to ask your people. In my case, I'll use my team as an example for the data on this, right? Because sometimes they don't know where to get it from because it could be one of three different technologies in our tech stack that would give us that data. And I know that attractions are bumping up against that, which I think is why Power BI is such a powerful tool. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, if you're using Outlook, it's available to you. You just need somebody like you who knows how to set it up, merge the data, find the information. I mean, I'm sure there's so much more to that. I'm probably making it sound way more simple than it is, but this is why we need people like Jamie out there helping us gather all that data together, make sense of it, because as you said, you cannot manage what you can't measure.
Exactly. And you say it's funny you mentioned that you're making it sound a lot more easier than it is. To be honest with you, I mean, they're as long as they're open sources, the technology is normally the easier piece. It's the conversations that happen within the business that say, okay, now we have this business. What's the data that we actually want, and how are we going to use that data to influence change? That's the part that normally takes longer than actually getting access to the data.
I believe that. I believe that because I've been in that boat too. And what's funny is when I first started with ticketing, I mean, we go way back to like when we were still laminating photos on ID cards, and that's how we were doing season passes. And when I first came on the team, I was on the implementation team in 2002. 2001, 2002 is when I started, the end of 2001. And what's interesting to me is back then we were teaching people how to use computers. In most cases, when we would be automating their systems, they were going from Casios. So we were still teaching them even how to use computers in some cases, because back in 2002, not many people had computers in the home.
Sure.
And so we were teaching them that. But what was interesting to me, and this is just, I want to wrap up this data conversation, is how many times I had managers or directors at parks tell me that they knew what was happening in their park based on how it felt to them.
Oh yeah, I still hear
You
that.
automate this data and they're totally off, right?
Yep.
Like, and it's a game changer because, like, if you guys are going off of feelings right now, I guarantee you, Jamie's going to open your eyes if you talk to him, right? And get this
Yep.
data, because it was time and time again.
I heard that from a good friend in the industry a couple of months ago, and if you're listening, you know who you are. But I just laughed and I said, "Okay, you sure?" And I just asked one or two simple questions, and that person was like, "Okay, maybe we should sit down and actually talk a little more." It was just an eye-opening experience, just by them not knowing truly what the guests are saying out there in the public, in these online reviews. So.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Okay, well, if you're okay on time, I want to touch on one last thing because I know that you are a um, early adopter of the IAAPA mentorship program, which you and I both love IAAPA. You know I love IAAPA.
Who doesn't? How can you
Yeah.
not love IAAPA?
How can you not love them? I mean, I think I've missed, outside of the pandemic, I've missed one in 22 or 23 years, and only because I busted my kneecap before the event and I knew I wasn't going to be able to walk the trade show floor. So, I don't like to miss them. I love them.
Those scooters. You have to get one of those scooters.
That's true.
Those things are
You know
fun.
what? It was such a fresh, like, injury that I was just pain too. Like, the idea of getting on a flight sounded awful.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll be honest, I had total FOMO the whole time. I was so upset that I couldn't be there. I never wanted to miss one. And, just kind of going back to this professional growth in the industry, I know that you're a big advocate for networking and mentorship in the industry. And, I'm curious if you'll tell us how important you believe it is for professionals to invest in these activities and how they can benefit from them. What's been your experience?
Absolutely. So my experience, and really goes back to when I came into the industry. I was lucky enough to really have two strong people that I looked up to as mentors, Charlie Brochart and Jamie Ellswick, both longtime industry experts. I have no hesitation saying, and at the time, I didn't even know they were mentoring me, really. I just thought they were being good teammates and things like that. But over the years, it kind of sunk in that, I mean, all they were doing was, they had that willingness to share the information, because it goes back to the passion for the industry. They wanted to teach me this industry, and I was lucky enough to have them both do that, among others. But those were the two biggest that I always look back on. And then I was listening to a podcast. I won't say which one because it wasn't this one, but maybe I don't know how many years ago it was now, but where Francine Gonzalez, at the time I think she was with Whitewater. Now she's heading up Legoland, Florida. But Francine was talking about the importance of not only finding a company that allows you to chase your passion, but embraces that. And one of the things she spoke on was this exact topic. It was the importance personally to her to mentor others and do all this other volunteer work that I'm sure everyone has seen Francine around. But she's on all these committees, and I just felt like she was everywhere. And what she spoke on was kind of that mentorship, like go after, put your name out there, do things that you might not be comfortable with doing, because you're going to learn. Nobody in this industry is going to look down on you because you put your name in the running for being on a committee or a subcommittee or a task force. And it's because of Francine that I really jumped on that, because it's just a passion of mine. I like helping other people. I like coaching other people. And it's very easy in this industry to kind of get lost if you don't have someone to kind of guide you. You walk onto that show floor the first time at IAAPA, and it's real easy just to get wide-eyed and walk around, and before you know it, the week's over and you don't really have that much to show for it, because there's just so many things to look at. But the best way to take advantage of that is to go meet people. I've never been around a group of people from top to bottom. The IAAPA Hall of Famers that are walking around that show floor, that are willing to shake your hand, introduce yourself, and just have a conversation with anybody is amazing. And everyone should be taking advantage of that. And when it comes down to the mentorship, yeah, I was an early adopter of that. I've had 3 or 4 mentees at this point. And I love that just being a part of that program. It's not a whole lot of time. I think it's an hour a week. I don't even think, or an hour a month, I think, but I don't think they even require that much. But that's kind of the approach I took is, I'll give up an hour of my month to kind of coach somebody that is looking and out there asking for more information and to learn this industry, because we have to hand over our expertise. We have to share our experiences, because it'll just help everybody in the industry. And I think on the flip side too, we as leaders should be out there and accepting the mentorship program as well. It's not just for the young professionals. To me, everybody that has a booth bigger than a 10 by 20 at IAAPA should have multiple people, leaders, as mentors in that mentorship program, out there talking to the young professionals and being a part of that program. It's going to help them. It's going to help the executives, because they're going to open themselves up to hearing from these young professionals on how they see the industry. It's a lot different from when you and I first started in the industry, and having our ear to the ground to those young professionals that are coming in is important. And I think every executive team out there, again, that has a focus in this industry, should have multiple people as part of the IAAPA mentorship program.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree. I participated in the mentorship program as a mentor, and I'm going to be completely transparent. My mentee was mentoring me as well, which is like another part of that I think, sometimes we fail to realize, we can be where we are in our companies and be having our head down doing this hard work, because it is hard. Work is hard, right? Like, it just is. It wouldn't be called work if it wasn't hard. The work that we do is hard. And sometimes, you need a mentor to help you get through those challenges or to celebrate those successes that we all have. I was fortunate enough to have great mentors, both in the tech space, in the attraction space, and then even for business. And one of the things that it occurred to me too is, they wanted me to be their biggest success story. Like, what an amazing thing to give someone. that they wanted that for me. Because not all of us have people we can celebrate with, right? And in fact, I would say one of my mentees came to me just this last month with, an amazing amount of things that we needed to celebrate. Just mind blowing what he's accomplished. And his feedback to me was, I didn't have anybody in my personal circle I could celebrate with. Because now I'm making more money than my parents and the people I know, right? And that's a hard thing for people to celebrate with you if they're not there, which is why you need mentors, because mentors help you raise the belief of what's possible too. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, it's, the people in our inner circles, especially in our work inner circles, especially when you're on the sales side, as kind of you and I are here in most cases, when you're on that side of things, you might celebrate, a big win for a phone call or an email saying, "Hey, great job signing that new deal," and then it's just on to the next one.
Yeah.
You might go home and celebrate with your family a little bit, but then we're salespeople. We're okay. What's next? That was great. Congrats. What do we got next? And I think the mentorship program is a good way for everybody just to take a step back, take a deep breath, and understand that, really see what's going on, and understand that it's not all about what's next. It's what just happened and what is happening that you can celebrate as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for mentioning, professional growth in industry and how important mentorship is, both as a mentor and a mentee at the same time. Like, there's so much, I think, to be learned from both sides. And also, that was an amazing program to be a part of, that IAAPA. I'm so glad that they're doing the mentorship program. It
Absolutely.
was an eye-opening experience for me. Like I said, my mentee, I think, was mentoring me as much as I was mentoring him. And to me, that was such a nice exchange. And if you're considering doing something like this, I say do it, because it's magical, what can happen when people get together and have conversations like what we're having today, which is where I've taken up so much of your time. We're actually going pretty long this time, but this was such great information, Jamie. I so appreciate you. And as we wrap up, what is the best way for this audience to get a hold of you? Let's say they need to centralize the data. They need to analyze this data. How do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. If you don't already have my email, LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. So search for me on there. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn. You could probably put my email in one of the posts, but it's jamie.flaherty at netserv-appl.com. So that's why I normally point people to LinkedIn. You can find me there. Check out the product, tatfuminsights.com, or our parent company, NetServ, netserv-appl.com. But I'm always running around a trade show floor, so I got a user group meeting coming up. VEX, if you don't know the visitor experience group, make sure you're checking that one out. It's a very good conference for anyone interested in the visitor experience group. And then, of course, I'll see everyone in Orlando.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jamie. I appreciate your insights today, and thank you for all that you do for the industry. I know that you are a huge advocate for what we do, and I really appreciate you.
As you are too, Sondra. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up today's show. Wasn't Jamie great? I mean, I'm so sorry this went long. I shouldn't apologize, because I'm not sorry. This was a lot of good information, and we will make sure to post how to get a hold of Jamie in the recaps. If you're watching this live and you didn't catch that, or you need to follow up and get that from him, I hope you do go visit him, and that you get the information that you need to be able to measure. Remember, you can't manage what you can't measure, and this guy's going to help you measure that. So thank you again for being here. I'm going to be at Arrival next week. So if you're planning on attending Arrival next week, I hope that you will at least say hello, because I would love to meet you and learn about you and your business, and what you're all about and what you're passionate about. Maybe even you can be the next guest on this show. So again, I want to thank you all for watching. Appreciate you being here today.